The second part of the sublimation video, I want to show you the most difficult part of the entire process, which is getting the print made on your printer. You can probably see here the ink tank, and if we show you over to the side, I've already used quite a bit of this ink, but there's a lot of it. I've done many prints off this thing, and I've also ordered a refill ink tank. And this cord has ink in it, and it's running up to the cartridge here. It's a special cartridge that you put in after you've started out your initial printer setup with the cartridges that came in it. If I go over here, maybe you can make out what this says. Warning, Ink Cartridge Not Recognized. All right, so I'm going to have to go through some steps since I just turned this back on and it wasn't recognized now to get the cartridge to be recognized again. Okay, so now I've got it to the step where it says replace the ink cartridge and hit the start button, which is this button over here. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is detach the cartridge that's in here. That way you'll get to see what it looks like also. I'm going to pull it out of here. So unlike the cartridge that comes with the machine, they're individual cartridges. This is one separate cartridge. All right, there are a lot of crazy steps in this that I have to remember in order. First of all, we have to remove these rubber plugs and put in these little filters that allow for the ink to have airflow. You just put them down in the hole the plug came out of, one at a time. You also have to remember that this tank cannot be above or below the level of the printer. So I always just keep it sitting next to the printer. And you want to check the air lines here to make sure there are no bubbles in them. So these look solid all the way through. If there are air bubbles, there are procedures that you have to go through to get the air bubbles out, which involve using a syringe and sucking the ink back up out of the ink cartridge and so on. But hopefully I will not have to do that here. In order to reset this thing, it also requires plugging in this little battery. So I'm going to do that next. So here's the battery. I've got a piece of tape on it because I used to tape it to the cartridge, but I found out that that causes problems. So after I install it and reset the tank with the battery, I unplug the battery again. All right. Now I'm going to push this down until I hear it click. You have to push on both sides, make sure it clicks in. Now, with the battery, I'm going to push this little button in and hold it for 5 seconds. Now I'm going to let that go and put the battery on top of the tank. You notice I've also got the cord set up so that there's a little loop in it, because when it goes back and forth, it will interfere with the top of the thing. I keep this lid open the entire time I'm printing. That seems to work pretty well. All right, now I'm going to press the start button, and we'll see what happens. It has to go through some settings, so it says it is checking the ink cartridges. And it may or may not work. Sometimes I get an error message and then I have to start all over again. The message I get is ink system checking complete, and it goes to this page, Wi-Fi setup and copy. So that means it should be ready to print. So now I'm going to do a test. All right, the first thing I did was a print head nozzle check, and this looks okay, but if it has little lines in it, you go through the nozzle cleaning steps just like you would with an ordinary cartridge, but it looks like this is going to be good to go. The next thing we're going to do is load in the sublimation paper. I've got a couple sheets of it here. It's slightly smaller than regular paper that you use to print on. It has a yellow side and a white side. The white side is what you want to print on. Now I'm going to print directly from my iPad. So this is a picture of the painting that I just took with the iPad. Now I'm going to make some adjustments to it. The first adjustment I made was in this photo editor right here. I cropped away the exterior mess around it, and then I sharpened it a bit. Now what I'm going to do is use this application right here. Remember, this is all done on the iPad. iResize. I've selected the photo I want, and I'm going to select Resize Advanced. And perhaps you can see the numbers in here. So it's 72 dpi. So the first thing I'm going to do is change that to 300. So when I changed that to 300, it changed the height to 8.7 by 12.1. That's fine, but if I wanted to make it something else, I could change the height and width, and it would stay at 300 dpi. But I'm going to say OK. Back in our photo page, we've got the original shot that I took, the one that I cropped, and now the new one that I've made that is 300 dpi. So I'm going to open that. And the next thing I'm going to do is go up here to the top and select this button, go down to the bottom and say Print with Printer Pro, which is an application I use. And sometimes I will get the message saying that the printer is offline, but in this case it says AirPrint, so it's ready to go. So I'm going to hit Print. Document printed successfully. I hit Done. Now it is in the process now of sending the print through, and I'll show you when it's finished. Okay, so you'll notice that here is the original piece of art, and here is the printout on the sublimation paper, and that the sublimation paper looks faded and the wrong colors, which worried me when I first started doing this. But once you print it, once you transfer it to the special piece of aluminum with the coating, the colors are brilliant and wonderful. The next thing we're going to do is prepare this aluminum plate. Here are a couple more that were printed like that, and you can see that they are smaller than the plate we're doing. So we'll be trimming this down after we finish it. I like for the image to be all the way edge to edge. I could print, as I was saying before, on plexiglass, but I want to give you something that I know is going to work. So there's the sheet ready to go. Ordinarily, I would put this image over to the edge and then like that decide where to trim it off. But since this is white around the sides, I'm going to put it right in the middle, face down. And this is heat resistant tape that I keep on a roll. I just transfer it over to a regular tape roll. Put a couple pieces on here to make sure that it's held into position. One at the top and one at the bottom ought to be good. Next, I've plugged in my heat press, and you can see it's beginning to heat up. It takes a while for it to get to the proper temperature. It needs to reach 360 degrees, and when it does, it'll start beeping, and it'll just stay at that temperature while you're ready to use it. There are pads on here. There's a foam pad here and a foam pad in here. I'm going to lay a sheet of printing paper on there. I'm going to put the print that we're going to make on top of that with a piece of paper and the tape. Let's put on another sheet of protecting paper. And finally, our sheet of Teflon, which you can also get at eBay, that will keep any of this operation from sticking to it. Now we just have to wait for this to heat up before we press it. I'm going to move this away from here so it doesn't start sublimating just by the heat coming off the thing, which it will a bit. Okay, the machine has reached 360 degrees. I have my timer ready to go. I'm going to press it down at medium pressure, and time it for 1 minute and 5 seconds. So here we go. All right, minute 5 seconds are up. Swing this away. Lift away the Teflon. Lift away the sheet of paper. Now remember, this is going to be very hot, so I pick this up with a rag, slip the click knife under there, and lift it away. And there is the finished sublimated print. Now, I've decided that I think this would look better trimmed away like the other ones. So I'm either going to use the paper cutter or my big scissors to trim this up, and we'll go from there. So here's our finished piece. I did trim it away, and now I'm going to mount a hanger on the back like this. It's just a piece of wood that I put a couple screws in. I decided that works better with the wire to hang it from than anything else. And I would also add that when you are ready to do your prints, if you have like 5 paintings that you're going to work on, go ahead and do all 5 pieces of transfer paper and print them out at one time while your printer is working, because the printer is the biggest pain in the entire procedure. But that's it.